What if one of the most famous cities in history never actually existed the way we were told? For centuries, people believed the story of Troy was nothing more than a myth. A dramatic tale filled with war, betrayal, revenge, and a giant wooden horse. Scholars laughed at it. Historians dismissed it. Entire generations called it fiction created to entertain ancient audiences. But then, something impossible happened. Buried beneath layers of earth in modern-day Troy, archaeologists uncovered the ruins of a forgotten city. Massive stone walls, burned buildings, weapons, human remains, evidence of destruction. Suddenly, the legend didn't seem so imaginary anymore. And that raised a terrifying question. If Troy was real, then what else from the ancient world has been hidden from us? Some believe Troy was destroyed by one of the greatest wars in human history. Others think the truth is even stranger, because despite decades of excavations, advanced technology, and endless research, historians still cannot explain what truly happened to the city. Was the Trojan War real? Did the famous wooden horse actually exist? Why were there multiple cities buried on top of each other? And why do some ancient records completely contradict everything we thought we knew? Tonight, we uncover the mystery historians still can't explain. Before we begin, subscribe now and join the channel for more forgotten mysteries buried beneath history. More than 3,000 years ago, on the edge of the Aegean world, Troy stood as one of the most strategically powerful cities of its time. Positioned near the narrow waterways connecting Europe and Asia, the city controlled major trade routes. Anyone moving goods between civilizations often had to pass near Troy. And where trade exists, power follows. Ancient kingdoms became rich through commerce, taxes, and military influence. Troy wasn't just another settlement. It was a gateway between worlds. Merchants, soldiers, travelers, and rulers all knew its importance. But according to legend, the city's destruction began with something deeply human: desire. The story starts with a prince named Paris. According to ancient accounts, Paris traveled to Sparta, where he met Helen, the wife of King Menelaus. Helen was said to be the most beautiful woman in the world. Then something happened that would supposedly ignite a war lasting 10 years. Helen left with Paris and sailed to Troy. Some say she was kidnapped. Others say she went willingly. But either way, the Greeks saw it as an unforgivable insult. Kings and warriors united under the leadership of Agamemnon. Thousands of ships crossed the sea toward Troy. And according to the ancient poet Homer, the war that followed became one of the greatest conflicts ever remembered. But here's where the mystery deepens. There's almost no direct evidence proving the Trojan War happened exactly as described. No surviving official war records. No confirmed list of kings. No proof Achilles existith. No evidence the famous duel between Hector and Achilles ever occurred. And yet, archaeologists discovered signs that a violent destruction really did take place around the same time ancient stories claimed Troy fell. So was Homer telling the truth, or mixing reality with myth? For nearly 2,000 years, nobody even knew where Troy was located. Some scholars believed the city never existed at all. But in the 19th century, a wealthy German businessman named Heinrich Schliemann became obsessed with proving the legends were real. Most experts thought he was wasting his time. He ignored them. Using clues from ancient texts, Schliemann traveled to a hill called Hisarlik in modern-day Turkey. And when excavations began, workers uncovered something astonishing. Not one city, 9 cities. Layer after layer of ancient civilizations buried on top of each other like stacked worlds frozen in time. Each layer represented a different era of Troy's existence. Some cities were destroyed by fire. Others collapsed from earthquakes or invasions. Entire populations vanished and were replaced. It was one of the most shocking archaeological discoveries in history. But instead of solving the mystery, it created even more questions. Which layer was the real Troy from the legends? Historians still debate this today. Some believe Troy 6 was the legendary city. It had massive defensive walls and signs of wealth. Others argue Troy 7 fits better because it shows evidence of fire, violence, and sudden destruction around the period associated with the Trojan War. But no theory explains everything. And then there's the biggest mystery of all, the Trojan horse. According to legend, after years of failed attacks, the Greeks pretended to surrender. They left behind a giant wooden horse as a gift. Hidden inside were elite soldiers. Once the horse was pulled into Troy, the soldiers emerged at night, opened the gates, and destroyed the city from within. It's one of the most famous stories ever told. But historians have a serious problem with it. There is no physical evidence the horse existed. Not a single fragment. No ancient blueprint. No confirmed historical record outside literary sources. So where did the story come from? Some experts believe the horse was never a real object. Instead, it may have been symbolic. In ancient times, horses were associated with earthquakes because the sea god Poseidon was linked to both horses and seismic destruction. Could the horse actually represent an earthquake that weakened Troy's walls? Others think the horse symbolized a siege weapon used to break into the city. And some historians believe the entire story was invented centuries later to make the victory more dramatic. But the strangest part is this. Even ancient writers disagreed about what happened. Different versions of the story contradict one another. Some claim Helen betrayed Troy. Others say she tried to save it. Certain accounts describe heroic warriors. Others portray them as brutal killers. It's as if history itself became distorted over time. And maybe that's because Troy was never just one story. It became something larger. A symbol. Civilizations across history used Troy to reflect their own fears and ambitions. The Romans claimed survivors from Troy founded their empire. Medieval writers transformed the war into tales of honor and destiny. Modern filmmakers turned it into epic entertainment. But buried beneath all those retellings may be a darker reality. Because archaeological evidence suggests Troy's final days were horrifying. Excavations uncovered signs of panic. Storage jars hidden beneath homes. Human skeletons left unburied. Burn marks across the city. Defensive structures hurriedly reinforced before destruction. These are not signs of peace. Something terrible was coming. Some researchers believe Troy suffered a prolonged siege that starved its population. Others argue the city was hit by multiple disasters at once. War, famine, fire, and possibly earthquakes. Imagine living inside those walls during the final days. Smoke rising in the distance. Food running out. Families trapped behind gates while enemies waited outside. Every night, wondering if the city would survive until morning. Then suddenly, silence. And after centuries of greatness, Troy disappeared. Because one mystery still confuses experts today. Why was Troy rebuilt over and over again? Most destroyed cities in the ancient world were abandoned. But Troy kept returning. Generation after generation rebuilt on the same ground despite repeated disasters. Why? The answer may lie in its location. Troy controlled access between major regions. Whoever ruled the area could influence trade between continents. Even after destruction, the land remained valuable. But some historians think there was another reason. Memory. Ancient people may have believed Troy possessed sacred importance tied to mythology and identity. Rebuilding the city wasn't just practical, it preserved a connection to the past. And that connection became so powerful that even powerful empires later traveled there to honor the ruins. When Alexander the Great conquered the region, he reportedly visited Troy and paid tribute to Achilles. Centuries later, Roman leaders did the same. Imagine standing among those ruins thousands of years after the war, still feeling the shadow of a story powerful enough to survive entire civilizations. But despite all the discoveries, technology, and research, historians still face one impossible problem. The deeper they dig into Troy, the less certain everything becomes. Every answer creates new contradictions. Every artifact raises new theories. And perhaps the greatest mystery isn't whether the Trojan War happened. Perhaps the real mystery is why humanity refuses to let the story die. Because Troy represents something timeless. The fear of betrayal, the cost of pride, the destruction caused by obsession and revenge. Even today, the story feels disturbingly familiar. Powerful nations fighting over honor. Leaders making catastrophic decisions. Ordinary people trapped inside conflicts they never chose. That may explain why Troy continues to fascinate the world after more than 3,000 years. It isn't only ancient history, it's human nature. And maybe that's why historians still can't fully explain it. Not because the evidence is missing, but because the truth was buried beneath centuries of myth, politics, propaganda, and storytelling. Somewhere between legend and reality, Troy still exists, waiting, silent beneath the earth, keeping secrets no one has completely uncovered. And perhaps the most chilling possibility of all is that we may never know the full truth. Was the war real? Was Helen real? Did Achilles truly fight beneath the walls of Troy? Or did an ancient story become so powerful that humanity transformed fiction into memory? The ruins remain. The mystery remains. And somewhere in the shadows of history, the lost city of Troy still whispers its unanswered secrets. For the next mystery hidden beneath ancient history, visit the channel now before this story disappears into the past.